If you think you're having a tough time, just imagine what it must be like for Donald Trump. He is alone in probably a stained bathrobe with not much going on, as he is no longer president. And he actually admitted that for one of the first times. Unfortunately for him, it was while he was saying something else that was incredibly stupid to Dan Bongino. Take a look.
Well, first of all, could you imagine if I were president right now and we had this massive attack from the coronavirus? Now they like to call it they have new names and they'll have other new names, but it's exactly what we had. We had the same thing. If that were me, they'd be saying, what a horrible thing, what a horrible job. I don't ever hear that, and these are numbers in some cases that are equivalent to what it was, but we don't hear that.
There is so much stupid about what he said. There's so much infuriating because it is definitely this woe is me mentality. And that he wants pity because he's no longer president. And then there's this weird instinct that he has to say that he's being treated unfairly, even though he's not being treated like anything. People are moving on and forgetting about him. I do want to say the thing that probably jumped to your mind first, everybody, when you heard Trump say, if this attack by COVID happened on my watch, it would have been much worse. I take you back to an NPR report from Trump's last full day in office to kind of dispel this rumor that there wasn't an attack of COVID during the Trump era. It says on Tuesday, the last full day of Donald Trump's presidency, the death toll reached 400,000. Once an unthinkable number. More than 100,000 Americans have perished in the pandemic in just the last 5 weeks of the Trump presidency. Again, that was from January 19th, 2021. But there's a lot of reasons, Donald, that people are upset. Were upset with you when 400,000 people died, and it had to do with you saying stuff like, "Let's inject people with ultraviolet rays and bleach to clean out their system." It wasn't that there was an attack of COVID during your era. It wasn't that. It was the way you were handling the attack of COVID during your era. He wants all this credit for doing Project Lightspeed, which sure, that was something that I think with great confidence I can say any president who could have been in office at that time would have allocated resources to expediting the development and approval of a vaccine. You can't have it both ways, Donald. It's the fact that you handled it so poorly. And when people are looking out in the United States right now at how it's being handled, there's still a lot of people handling it poorly. But getting vaccines to people is not a problem. So here to discuss more is Jackson White, the editor-in-chief of Politiscope, the app, as well as a contributor to Rebel HQ. Welcome, Jackson. What do you think about this?
Well, I think it's important to point out that even though they just donated, refunded donors another $12.8 million, is that this really won't have very much effect on the enthusiasm for the support that he has for the people that he does have within his pipeline. He's made an entire career of being a con artist. The $25 million he had to pay back for Trump University after stealing $50 million. After saying he never settles, but he settled that case because if he didn't, he may have had to pay up to $200 million. All the workers that he stiffed through his history of working with casinos, he bankrupted that underground football league just to save his own skin. His father coming in, just example after example after example of him not only being a fraud, but as you were pointing out, just the way that he handled COVID as a whole. He's just, nothing about his leadership is solid, nothing about it is competent. And this is just more of the same old. And unfortunately, he's still looking like the main contender for the Republican 2024 ticket. Unless Ron DeSantis can take the hype from him. I know GOP donors are rushing money to Tim Scott, but Republicans are not about to vote for a black man. So still, it's looking like Donald Trump is the 2024 Republican candidate, even though.
Do you think that it's at all possible that Ron DeSantis could ever, in any case, if Trump wants to run, do you think DeSantis would ever just stick around and be like, let's give this a shot?
If he would he run against Trump?
Yeah, would he ever run against Trump? Would he ever find?
I don't think he would, and at least at this point, I don't think he would, because his brand is so closely tied to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump wouldn't like that. So if anything, he would position himself to be a vice. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought up that point, because I hadn't really considered that. It may be bad to not just the DeSantis brand, but just to the Republican Party as a whole, if everyone isn't still united behind Donald Trump.
Yeah, and a little bit of what Jackson was talking about. Trump is refunding money to people who donated for him. This is an ongoing story, and even though in the past he's had to refund some donations, he still continues to do so. So former President Trump's campaign and the Republican Party returned around $12.8 million to donors in the first 6 months of this year. These refunds, according to the New York Times, were some of the biggest outlays that Mr. Trump made in 2021. And he has built up his $102 million political war chest and amounted to roughly 20% of the $56 million he and his committees raised online so far this year. So 1 in every $5 that Trump raised in the first half of 2021, he has had to give back. And for those who don't remember the mechanism by which these ill-gotten gains were gotten, it was previously reported in April that his reelection campaign had refunded around $122 million to donors in 2020. Recently released federal records have revealed that the Trump campaign has so far returned $135 million to campaign donors. And Trump's political operation began opting online donors into automatic recurring contributions by pre-checking a box on its digital donation forms to take a withdrawal every single week. Donors would have to notice the box and uncheck it to opt out of that donation. And then there was a second pre-check box that took out another donation known as the money bomb. I feel like if you have something called the money bomb, you might be in a scam. So they obscured that fact even further, according to research from the New York Times. Trump's team obscured that fact by burying the fine print beneath multiple lines of bold capitalized text. And we have an image of these things, even though they're yellow and in bold. Like, look it down at the bottom. It's like, make this a weekly donation until 11/3. Donate an additional $100 automatically on the 9th. That is crazy. When you found out about this scheme, Jackson, what'd you think?
I think that Trump lives like a drug addict, like a gambling addict. Like he just needs more and 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 more, and he can't stop it. And like just how you pointed out, like just little bitty letters at the bottom, keep donating for a month, add an extra $100. For a man who's supposed to be so on top of his game and so on top of his finances and his business, he certainly behaves like someone who's in the hole, or someone who has an insatiable addiction that they just cannot cure. And yeah, I mean, and it really kind of represents also the way that this country has been running for decades, if not really its whole existence. Just a sugar high after sugar high after sugar high. How can we get the biggest short-term gain? And Donald Trump is the id of the United States of America.
Yeah, that's exactly it.